On the other side of this bridge lies the community of Bridgeville here in Humboldt County, California. Now, I have never been here before, but fortunately, we have along with us two tour guides, and they're going to take us on a tour of Bridgeville to tell us some of the fascinating history of when it was sort of an old west town, and also some interesting history about the architecture of this historic bridge that was built around 100 years ago. And if you're a reader of a local history, I'm sure you know both of these names, because they both have written a number of books and articles about Humboldt County history. My friends, I give you Barry Evans and Jerry Rohde with us here today. Jerry and Barry brought me up here, and I'm so grateful. Thanks for bringing me up here, you guys. So why did you really want to take us up to Bridgeville to show us around?
Well, it's all about the history, Ray. And if we go back in history 150 years, this was one of the most important places in Humboldt County.
This is where you could cross the Duzen River.
Okay, so it was a real bustling, lively town at one point.
Very much so.
All right, let's get this going. Bridgeville awaits us.
So Jerry, we know this is a really good place to cross the Van Duzen just because of the geography here. Who were the original people living here who used this as a crossing point?
There was an Indian tribe known as the Nongatl, Nongatl, and they were here, well, you know, since time immemorial. And we know that they were a very big tribe, and they covered a lot of the area, the whole Van Duzen drainage and places on the other side too.
Do they actually have a village that you know of in this area?
As far as we know, there wasn't a village right here at Bridgeville. There were villages a couple of miles downstream, and upstream from here the Van Duzen turns into a narrow gorge, and there are all sorts of small villages up there.
And how would they have used this area around here?
Well, they would have lived down near the river in the wintertime and gathered the fish that came up, and then in the summertime they would have gone to the prairies up on the hillsides, and they would have hunted and gathered up there, elk and deer. They would have gathered berries, and especially acorns were a very stable part of their diet. That was the time for them to collect those food and bring it back down to the valley for the winter.
So Jerry, this is pretty remote out here. Why did Bridgeville develop in this particular location?
Between 1875, or about that time when the road was completed here, and 1893, this was the main road in and out of Humboldt County. So wagons, stagecoaches carrying large loads could come through here, and there'd be a number of people, of course, with them.
So this was the best place to cross the Van Duzen River so they can continue to points beyond.
Exactly. So Bridgeville was an active place. You know, they had saloon, store, school, hotel. They had all the basics that you needed for a small community.
And a bridge.
And a bridge, yeah.
A bridge.
Yeah.
So Ray, let's take a look at the town here.
All right, you want to go show me some more?
Yeah, we've got
show us
some interesting stuff, so let's do it. Let's go. So back in the early days of Bridgeville, this street we see today was the wagon road, and it was dusty or muddy depending on the type of year, but heavily traveled. You had lots of wagons, lots of stagecoaches, people coming in buggies. It was a big deal because now you could have wheeled vehicles instead of just a horse or a pack train.
And this led directly to the bridge.
Yeah.
So you said this town had a 17-year reign as a bustling town, wagon stop. What happened?
Well, they put in a different road. It was closer to the coast. It shaved a whole bunch of miles off of the route that you had to take when you came to Humboldt County to get to Humboldt Bay. So that became the preferred route.
Did the town just sort of decline from that point on, or what happened?
Well, I think it slumbered for a while, although the route that went up the Van Duzen actually became Highway 36. What we've got in store for you, Ray, we've got one bona fide, very historic spot just up the road from us here. You want to go see it?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. How can I say no to that? That's good. Jerry's gone up ahead and we're going to catch up with him in just a little bit. But first I want to tell you some interesting information he told me while we were walking up Main Street. I asked Jerry what kept the economy of this little town going after it was an active overland route and before it sort of hit that little mini lumber boom in the 1940s and 50s. It was ranching and farming. Primarily ranching sheep, and there were a number of farms and ranches out around this area that kept the economy going. And before we meet up with Jerry, I just want to show you some scenes of downtown Bridgeville.
Well, Ray, this is a marker for a very tragic story that occurred in 1879, and a very heavy storm hit. And all of the residents of Bridgeville went out on the bridge to see the high water, and all of a sudden the bridge started to collapse. So everyone ran for their lives to get to the shore before the bridge fell down, except for the storekeeper, little son. Here's this poor 3-year-old kid still out on the bridge, and he couldn't make it back in time, and the bridge fell and he was swept away and he drowned.
So Barry, I understand you got me some great drone footage out here.
Well, I certainly hope so. And the story about this bridge is one of 5 built crossing the Van Duzen River when Highway 36 was being built from basically Hydesville all the way through to Red Bluff.
Why did they build it out of concrete instead of steel?
Steel at that time had to come from back east. You can probably locally source the sand and gravel that makes up the concrete.
Oh, I see. That most of the steel back then was made on the East Coast, which would have cost a lot of money to ship over here. And they were able to make the concrete out of locally sourced materials.
Whereas with a metal bridge, every 5-10 years, you have to go out there and repaint it. And it takes a lot of maintenance because it rusts. So when the county was getting ready to put through Highway 36, Leonard was the man for the job. And he designed 5 reinforced concrete arch bridges along the Van Duzen. There are now 2 bridges left. He was a pioneer. Reinforced concrete had only been around really as a structural element for 20 odd years. And he was an ardent advocate of reinforced concrete. He was around for the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, and all the reinforced concrete buildings survived. The unreinforced masonry, that is brick buildings, virtually had all collapsed then.
And Barry, I remember you told me earlier that John Leonard also designed Fern Bridge on the Eel River.
Fern Bridge, 7 spans, 200 feet a span. I mean, that's a major bridge. And interestingly, when the floods of 55 and 64 came along, several bridges upstream failed. That bridge not only survived, it's still there now.
So Barry, why is this bridge only open to pedestrian traffic?
Caltrans built a new highway bridge in 1997.
So yet they kept this beautiful old Leonard Bridge.
They kept it open. Apparently there's talk of demolishing it at one point, but no, this is a classic 1925 John Leonard poured concrete arch bridge.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful view of the Van Duzen River off of both sides.
And in my mind, with the concrete railings on each side, it's a very elegant bridge.
So you ready to head on down to see the next Leonard Bridge?
What do you say?
Yeah, why not?
Let's do it.
All right, hey,
Then-
you're the tour guide, so you lead the
The
way.
next and the only other surviving Leonard Bridge on the Van Duzen.
Let's go see it. Okay, after driving about 5 or 6 miles down the 36 from Bridgeville, Jerry pulls over on this little turnout, and then they take me on this trail that is actually an old overgrown road that leads right to the old bridge. And there's a bridge right ahead. Let's go check this out.
So, gentlemen, this is the other type of reinforced concrete arch bridge. It'll be good from the drone's point of view to look at this bridge, which will be 100 years old next year. And as I said, those are the only 2 left of the 5 John Leonard designed bridges. We saw the one back in Bridgeville itself where the deck was over the top of the arch. Here what we've got is the deck goes through the arch. It's called a through arch bridge. See all these vertical, what look like pillars? They're actually hangers, and these hangers are holding up the deck.
So there's rebar running through these and the concrete to hold this span up.
Exactly.
Gee.
So that's how this is held up. So instead of sitting on top of the arch, it's hanging from the arch here. And this was very much a John Leonard. He pioneered this type of bridge. I just want to say something else about reinforced concrete and why it's so good. You see here, you have a little bit of rebar
You can see the rebar
poking through. Now, this is after 100 years. So this is the worst that the elements have done to it. And actually, this is just on the side railing. This is a graceful bridge. They don't build them like this anymore, you know. This is one of my favorite spots. The Van Duzen is just the best river ever, you know.
Yeah, and we think if other people made the trip up here on Highway 36, it'd become a favorite spot for them too. I mean, being able to see these two bridges and their wonderful rock formations along the way, and beautiful redwood forests that you go through. So I hope that once somebody sees, you know, this story about the bridges, they'll be inspired to make the trip.
All right, you guys, we got a long drive, so let's head on back down the road.